after. Today we are discussing episode 9 of Chris's season of The Bachelor Canada. I've got to say this episode, the word that comes to mind, or that I wrote several times while watching, was trying and tedious. This was a brutal episode. I wonder if anyone else felt the same way. If you did or didn't, please let me know, because I always like to not feel alone in my thoughts. I'll go through in chronological order. So this episode was clearly very pro-Lindsay. It was steering super Lindsay, almost suspiciously so, in a way that I find like kind of weird. The beginning of the episode shows Chris saying that with Lindsay there's the X factor and that with Michaela there isn't. And this ties into what I said last week about how it felt very, like they showed Chris saying that he loved Lindsay and that he wanted to ask for permission to propose to Lindsay. It's so clear that Lindsay's the front runner but it's just, it doesn't even make sense to me, because usually they would have a bit more of an equalized edit. So like even if that were the case, they would edit it so it would be more neck and neck. So that's why I'm really like, it's just too obviously Lindsay. It's kind of like, well, why are we watching? Like, why we're not on the edge of our seats. That said, I like how Bachelor Canada does the final 3 having hometowns and final 2 having overnights. This is, why doesn't the American version do this? There's no need for the lead to meet 4 families and go have like private sexy time with 3. It's just not necessary. Okay, so Michaela has her one-on-one, and this is clearly sponsored by Sunwing. And there's a pirate ship invasion, which was so random that I had to just mention it. I would probably spend the majority of this video talking about this date because it was so frustrating to me. There's this long conversation had about the hard questions. So Michaela comes and she's all confident, and Chris is like, well, I'm not really sure. And she's like, oh wait, you're not sure? And he's like, yeah, I'm not really sure. And she's like, oh wait, now I'm not sure. And it's clear that she was, you know, feeling kind of good. And then she even says, she's like, you're saying things that sort of take us back a step. They just don't seem in line with things you've said before. And then all of a sudden they're talking about the hard questions, how Chris should have asked them sooner, how he's finally asking them now, how she's happy he's finally asking them now. And please inform me if you know what a single one of these hard questions was. It was like conversation after conversation was had about the hard questions, but we never actually heard what the hard questions were. It's like the entire conversation was skipped over. And then Chris says in an ITM, I hold everything in, and then at the last second, I ask all the questions I should have asked a month ago. What questions? What is the resolution? What was he holding in? And then he also says, in another ITM, I never expected Michaela and I to be having the conversation that we're having right now. It's like, again, another conversation about the conversation, but there's no actual conversation that they're talking about shown. Ugh. And then Michaela says that if she hadn't said what she said, they might still be in this everything is great, ignorant place. But so she's happy she said what she said, but what is she talking about? Because it wasn't shown. Honestly, this whole date felt like they were talking in code. It went from like conflict to resolution, and we didn't actually see the meat and potatoes. It was so frustrating. I was like ripping my hair out. I was so annoyed. Okay, so Lindsay's date. Lindsay says a really sweet thing, but she says, the way he smiles when he looks at me and it makes me feel like I'm magic. I thought this was just such a lovely thing. I think when you're in love, you know how that feels, and I just thought that was a lovely way of putting it. They have a cleansing ceremony on their date, and it just annoyed me how the music made this sound so like tragic and desperate, like they needed the guidance of the cleansing ceremony to give them closure on their relationship. It was just like, oh, let it be what it is. It was like a neat cultural experience. It doesn't need to tie in to The Bachelor in some distant way. Then Chris, okay, he has the fantasy suite date card. The way he handled this, I thought was perfect. How he mentioned what the sisters had said, and he, you know, he made it clear what, you know, what his preference was, but he really left it up to her, not up to her sisters. And I thought that this was just, he did it really classily and was just very gentlemanly and well done. So after overnights, Chris says in a voiceover, "This whole journey has been really, really tough for me. And after overnights, I'm even more conflicted." Oh, how shocking. Overnights leaving someone more conflicted. I think he must be the first lead ever to feel that way. So Michaela meets Chris's parents, who, by the way, are so sweet. They seem really down to earth and like real, and they don't seem like the kind of parents that are just blowing smoke up their son's ass. Like they're kind of give him some tough love, and I just think that they were lovely. They really clearly care about it. You can tell they're good parents. Basically, the focal point of Michaela meeting the parents is that Chris's mom, Marion, says that she knows he can easily withdraw. That's it. That's the focal point of Michaela's time. And of course, the focal point of Lindsay's time is that she's 23. Shocking. I'm sick of hearing about the 23 thing. I think that it's being really, like, milked. And here's it. Chris really dropped the ball here. So he warns his parents that Lindsay's 23. He knows they're going to have an issue with this. And they say, "What attracted you to her?" So, I mean, he has the foresight to warn them that she's 23 and knowing that they're probably not going to like it, but he doesn't have the foresight to prepare adjectives, like specific reasons why Lindsay, despite being 23, is so perfect for him. Instead, he says, "She's funny, she's fun, she's beautiful." I mean, those are nice things to say, but that does not, it's not, I think you need a real zinger in there, and that does not sum it up. And I feel like he's got to do better than that, especially since describing Michaela, he called her sweet, funny, and beautiful. So 2 out of the 3 adjectives were the same. Chris's dad is giving Chris a seriously hard time about being 33. I thought this was funny. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think it's that old. I don't, especially, I mean, he's straight out of his career. I just don't think 33 is that old. Yeah, it's just funny how they kept harping on that. And I am 33, so maybe that's why I feel that way. I thought it was notable that Chris's mom said that about Lindsay and Vancouver. I got the sense that she wasn't willing to bend on that there wasn't a compromise. I thought this was true, and I think it's a bit of a concern. I don't mean that she has to get up and move her entire life to Toronto, but I think the fact that there's no sort of like middle ground, especially maybe if he'd always wanted to live in Vancouver, I think it's just a lot of, you're putting a lot on him, especially when he said, like, he wants his nieces and nephews, and he has his own family to think about. So, yeah, long distance is brutal, no matter how you slice it. I love that when Lindsay left, Chris straight up said to his parents, "So who's your favorite?" He was, like, dead serious about it. And I think he wanted them to say someone. It would make it easier on him. And then I feel like some people might have found this conversation with his mom moving. I found it very, again, tedious, where it became about his feelings or his inability to express his feelings, how he left home at 18 and has just been around guys, and his profession is a world where he's supposed to suppress his feelings, and all I could think was like, this is supposed to be about Michaela and Lindsay and, like, which one of those is right for your life. And, like, I feel like he's having the conversation that an 18-year-old guy has. And it was really disturbing to me that this was the focal point, because I just felt like we were watching a different show. Like, he did not seem in any way ready to be getting engaged. I don't want to talk about that too much, because that's what my entire Flair recap is about today. So, and it is harsh, so I'm gonna look it over one more time before I submit it, because yeah, I need to reflect a bit. Okay, I have one question from you guys. It's from Sarah Diener, and she says, "Is it just me, or is there zero passion between anyone on this show? Last night's episode was painful." Thank you, Sarah Diener. This is so validating, because I feel the exact same way. I mean, I guess I see passion and connection between Lindsay and Michaela and Chris. That sounds really weird. But I feel the same way. I just feel like it's being drawn out. I really, really was anticipating and expecting women tell all. And so I think that also was an issue, is I felt like I needed my comic relief, and I didn't get it, and instead it was just more of the same shit. And I don't know if I agree with zero passion, but I will agree that I'm not invested. I don't feel invested in either relationship the way I usually am at this point. Okay, that's it for the morning after. I just chat all over that episode. Let me know what you guys think or thought or feel in the comments or on Twitter. I always like to keep the conversation going. So let me know what you think. And yeah, I'll see you here next week. Hopefully it will be a better spirited morning after. Okay.